Welcome.
briefly.
You were a Knicks fan?
Yeah, I wanted Patrick Ewing shoes.
Oh, see, that don't count.
No, I was
When
a
you were,
Knicks in the mid '90s.
what is it?
Like when they made it to the finals and everything.
When I was a child, I played as a child. I taught as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. As a
Nah, but
man, when was the last
Knicks
time
had
you
a
rooted for
team.
the Knicks?
Huh?
As a man, when was the last time you rooted for the Knicks?
I watch the Knicks now. Like I don't mind. I still want to go to Madison Square
You
Garden.
love basketball, right? You love
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about you don't root for the Knicks.
No, I haven't since the '90s.
See,
That's what I'm saying.
I've never rooted for the Knicks.
It was a period where I did. Yeah.
Never.
You got a countdown for Stu.
Oh, I thought this was entering the show, right? Like,
No, he's asked you repeatedly to do a countdown so he knows.
well, Stu, this is for you.
Yes.
1, 2, back where we started. When was the last time you rooted for the Knicks?
The last time I rooted for the Knicks. No, it was in the '90s. I had like a period where I was really into the Knicks. I love John Starks. I can still list that whole starting five. It was Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, Charles Smith, John Starks, and then you had Derek Harper. You had like Greg Anthony coming off the bench. See, I was a fan.
Bore.
But now I look back on it and I laugh at like, man, like Patrick Ewing traveled every time he got the ball. Like every time.
Some feet.
Man.
Yeah, y'all. Like again, this is episodes something with a number. 11, 12, or 13
Yeah.
probably.
I don't even try to keep up no more, but I think that it's the fact that we are in double digits, I think is incredible because we didn't set out with like this goal in mind, but now that we've gotten it going, we do have a goal.
Well, there was always a vision, right? A vision of doing something, right? This has been therapeutic for me. I've needed this.
Yeah.
It's helped, us kind of chronicleize and journal what the things we've done, but
Right.
also get our frustrations out, talk through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our, former coworkers, colleagues call us and say, I've been listening. I like what y'all are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their thoughts and they brings up stories and it's like, hey, you should come on the show.
Yeah.
I was talking to Colonel Sanders, Marquita Sanders. She down.
You know what though? And she gonna beat me up for saying this. That Kerry Washington movie that just came out. Was it 388?
Yeah.
Okay.
6.
3666. Okay. The whole time I'm watching that movie, all I was thinking was like, this Marquita. Because if I had a problem like this, I know exactly who I would go get, and it's like Marquita. I was like, she would have. Just like Kerry Washington did in that meeting, I was like, oh, Marquita would have organized the shit out of this.
She is one of the only women that I can think of where I can call her, drop her into a foreign land, and she will survive.
Of course.
No, you know what I'm saying? She'll get to it, like find her path, find her lane, do what needs to get done. Like you can count on her.
Is an exceptionally talented, and she is one of those people that literally can just do anything. And we talk about that, a lot about just being like black operatives, just like on the business side of things. There are two pieces of advice I always give people. Number one, you have to attach yourself to something like mail, media, digital, something. Yep. You have to attach yourself to something to actually see the financial benefits, or they'll keep you as a GC forever. They'll have you come in and run everything, but never ever give you any of the money.
Right.
You gotta attach yourself to something like that. And then the other thing is, and I actually got this advice from this was some advice Donna Brazil gave to me. Which is like, you have to be curious. You have to know how to do multiple things. We don't get to just be one thing. If you want to work, you gotta know just enough about everything to be dangerous.
Yep.
And Marquita is one of them people where she can just do anything. And those are the kind of operatives, particularly if you are of color, those are the kind of operatives that thrive.
You mentioned a term, and we always got to remind ourselves for the folks who aren't watching. I mean, for the folks who are listening and watching that don't know the terminology. You said GC.
Yes. So a GC is a general consultant, and usually that's the person who's like brought into a campaign. You're not necessarily the manager. Sometimes you are, but you're basically there to kind of be the adult and provide general oversight and management of the whole operation. And a lot of times, you know, so that sounds like, oh, you're kind of in charge of the whole operation, so you get paid the most, right? And it's like, no. You don't actually. Unless, okay, I'm going to be the general consultant, but I'm also going to do the mail, right? Or I'm also going to do the radio ads, or I'm also going to do the TV ads or the digital. So a lot of times as Black operatives, it's hard for us we have to really fight to break into that aspect of it, or else, you know, but if you don't, then they'll keep, you know, taking all of your labor, all your intellect, all your everything, and you're the one really steering this, but not getting the most of the return. And I tell people, you know, your heart, I mean, your thoughts, everything someone like a Marquita brings to the table, that's your intellectual property. Don't be just out here giving it away for free.
Right. It's funny because I'm talking to a couple people right now in terms of what my role is going to be. And my wife is constantly reminding me of, that's all well and good, but how much?
I know. The wives will do that. And it'll put you in a situation, I can't ask for that much. And my wife is like, well, why not? And I'm like, the insane amount of confidence that you have in me, if I could ever just get that for myself, I might be dangerous.
It's not the confidence in ourselves, because it's there.
Yeah.
We just understand and we know and we feel, right? Like, we want to do the work, particularly if it's a great candidate.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a clown, and you laugh because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, well, that could be a few people, but just know too, this is another little, you know, behind the curtain. If you do encounter like a clown, like those are gonna be the ones that are gonna ask you for the most and have the absolute least amount to actually pay. But they're gonna want your soul.
And they talk cash shit about how much they can raise and what they've done in the past. But listen, that don't mean nothing if you can't afford to keep the lights on.
No. So it's a business, but you're right. Like what often happens with stuff like this is we're bleeding hearts in a way. And so you want to get out there, you want to support the cause. And you know, our wives don't think that way. Our wives think in terms of you know, checkbooks balancing and everything else. So like, no, they need to pay you.
You know, they're looking out for our best interest. Our sanity, stress level.
Yes.
I mean, I know for me, you know, dealing with, you know, the disease and everything that I'm dealing with, right? Like she's ensuring that I'm not overworking myself, and I'm looking out because she knows how I can get entrenched in something and try to, you know, be the mamba, right? And play through sickness and you know, we're trying to be cognizant these go-rounds, particularly if I'm trying to play a major role and you know, some key races.
Yeah. We don't police that for ourselves.
No.
Very well. We'll always get in trouble. Or is this too much on your plate? But
you know, speaking of, like, once again, guys, we are live. Not live. We're coming to you from the Spark Social. So shout out to my man Dre. You're gonna hear Dre chime in. I'm gonna ask Dre from time to time to chime in because we have developed a great relationship and rapport with our guy. So if you hear a voice, the voice of God is what we call it, the VOG. VOG come in and just say some random stuff to us. Just know that is our man Dre. Ain't that right, Dre? Yes, sir. So Kevin and I talked about like entrenching ourselves in the campaign and knowing our worth, both, you know, on a financial scale as well as just in terms of what we provide. And I think, you know, again, we let y'all know that we record multiple episodes at one time because one, Kev lives in Florida. You know, he has his own adventures going on. Can I say the name?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I mean, you can't. I don't care.
Well, I can say it.
I don't even know what you're gonna say. For sure.
He is a recent restaurateur with Duck Donuts.
Yes.
So, you know, I hope Duck Donuts doesn't ever, you know what I'm saying, try to come at us. But
No.
if you are in the West Palm area,
yes, come see us.
Definitely stop by.
Come see us.
But and then like he comes up to Atlanta. One, he's born here. His in-laws are here. It's a great place to be. But we, you know, record multiple episodes. So today is April 12th. What's today? 12, 13, 14?
It is the 12th.
And it's the 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
Of when Hillary launched her campaign. Now
2016 campaign.
2016 campaign for president. Now I had already been working for secretary since January of 2015, and we were building up for this launch.
To the launch, yeah.
So like all the groundwork and that I had laid in southern states for her, that was my role. But today she had officially launched, and she launched from New York, didn't she?
Yeah. She did that big rally. It was nice.
Yeah, big rally. I wasn't there. I was doing on the ground stuff, and I think I was doing stuff here. But we had launch events going in almost every major city where we had kind of, you know, laid the foundation. So, you know, we talk about her race. We talked about it in the past. This was the first time you and I worked together on a campaign.
Yeah. But did we ever actually physically see each other during that whole campaign? We talked every day, but I don't think we ever
I saw you
were in the same place.
Before you went to New York.
Right. And then that was, but we never, so yeah, we did work on that campaign, but it's weird. We talked like pretty much every day about the campaign, but never actually were in the same place physically at the same time.
Listen, the beauty of, you know, remote working. That's like campaigns was real remote work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you were going back and forth from DC and New York.
DC and New York. And, you know, we were just talking a little bit about like the behind the scenes on campaigns and in this business. And like, you know, like sometimes you have to take pay cuts to do the stuff you want to do. So we had a family friend that lived in Trenton. Trenton was the closest place I could get to New York to live for free, so that I could do the Hillary campaign, because the pay cut that I had to take to do the race, I would not have been able to afford a place to live in Brooklyn and having a place to live in DC. And then, you know, we were also, we were getting married that year too, so we're saving up for a wedding. So, you know, my wife is looking at me like, extra crazy, but like not really, because you know they know who they're marrying, and so she knew, he's going to do this, and we just have to figure it out. So yeah, man, I was living in Trenton, and I would ride the train from Trenton into Brooklyn every day.
Looking back, will you still make the same decision?
I think so. Yeah, for sure I would have, because for me. And you know, I've been through this twice now with Trump. I knew I was on the right side, and I knew what I was fighting for. And you know, I don't have kids, but I always think about if I ever did one day, you know, my kid looks back on some of this stuff and it's just like, well, Daddy, where were you, or what were you doing?
Right.
Your daddy wasn't quiet while all this was happening.
Well, see, then you knew Trump was the nominee.
Yeah.
When I was doing it, we didn't think Trump was going to be the nominee. I don't know who the hell we thought was going to be the nominee.
Let's see, 16, man. I don't even remember who was up on the side.
It was a show. It was a circus.
That's you had Perry.
You had Perry.
Perry looked strong. Bachman. Bachman had a moment.
I was about to call her Whitmer, but
no.
Bachman, Jeb.
Jeb
had
with the exclamation point.
right. You had
Jeb.
Cruz. I mean, you had a host.
You
of
had
people.
Marco. You had little Marco.
Marco,
who's
yeah.
now in the cabinet. He's now Secretary of State. So they had like a feel on
The governor
that side.
of Ohio. What was his name?
Kasich.
Not was it Casey?
Yeah.
That's who I was afraid of the most.
Yeah. He would have been hard to beat in a general, but you know he also would have been like a return to more saner times. Like I remember, and you know, we were like in college and Bush was president, and it was just like, oh my God, this is a disaster. And then we lived through Trump. But like even with Bush, like you never went to bed thinking he's gonna blow up the world. Like it'll be fine. He'll do things you don't agree with, but like it'll still be fine. Kasich would have been a throwback to that. Like I didn't vote for you, but like
You cool.
it's fine, whatever. Like he's not gonna ruin the world. But like what we got now, it's like whoa.
I think what frightened me about Kasich was he grew up a Democrat.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hillary grew up a Republican.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of Bush, right? We're gonna get back to our Madam Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Bush ran against Vice President Al Gore.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we kind of want to lean on is Democrats dropping the bag.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. In this sense, Al Gore running against George W.
Yep.
For president. This was
Yep.
99,
2000. Yeah.
For the 99 and the 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know, for those who don't remember, if you are younger than us, the big thing there was the hanging chad.
Yeah.
You know, back then, some states, not every state was on, no state was on casting a ballot via computer, right? They would have to use a Scantron, almost like
breaking the chads.
Breaking the chads.
Yeah.
And there was a discrepancy about if people were pushing for Bush or Gore because the chad or the line did not line up completely right.
In Florida.
Yeah. And some people didn't press it all the way through. And so you didn't know if that was
what their intent was. There was some debate.
So it was causing the question. But that night, election night, you know, Al Gore had conceded. And then I guess in like a matter of 12 hours,
changed his mind
because of what was going on in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you think, and your notion was it should have never been that close.
No, I think that was one of the, if you really look back at like recent modern political history, like one of the aspects of this that has to be analyzed is we keep kind of fumbling the handoff. And I think Clinton-Gore was one of the first instances like that we'll talk about today of like we fumbled the handoff. Like, you know, people can only steal an election that's close.
Right.
Like you can't steal a landslide.
Right.
And ultimately what happened in that election is, you know, it you know, the people in charge of the election in Florida, one of them happened to be George Bush's brother. You know, the Supreme Court, you know, was conservative, and they intervened and just stopped the counting of the votes and trying to have an earnest effort to actually understand what people's intent was. So as a result of that, you know, Bush became president in 2000, but it never should have been close, right? Like in the 90s, you know, Bill Clinton, this was the most successful president we had since Roosevelt, right? Like by the time you got to Johnson's term, Johnson wasn't popular when he was leaving office. Historically, we look back at that as a transformative presidency, but he wasn't popular when he left. We never got to see the full potential of Kennedy. Carter wasn't popular when he left. So here it is with Bill Clinton. This is the most successful presidency since Roosevelt, and we're running up against a guy who and I think differently about George Bush now than I did at the time, but like basically
he was inexperienced
and kind of like
goofball,
not up to the job, right? You know, and we should have ran away with that. You're a vice president of very transformative administration, but there was still a lot of residual hangover from Clinton and Monica Lewinsky that had turned certain voters off. And then Bill and Al Gore weren't really talking. Bill Clinton wasn't really being deployed. And give you an example of the residual from the Lewinsky stuff is Al Gore puts Joe Lieberman as his running mate, and Joe Lieberman was one of the first Democrats to condemn Bill Clinton because of what happened with Lewinsky. And so we didn't really lean into all of the successes of the Clinton administration, and so we ended up again losing a race that we shouldn't have lost.
Now, another aspect, and I actually went back and looked at some of the debate footage in the first debate. And in it, you saw a very aggressive and almost, it seemed he came off a little bit rude, Al Gore.
And very defensive.
Very defensive.
He was very defensive.
I guess he was trying to show that he was the antithesis of what Bill Clinton was, right?
Correct.
And that, to a degree that hurt him. But I wonder, and, this may, I'm going to go down a road or path. I wonder, had Al Gore selected a woman to be his vice president, what would that have done to the race? Would that have shaken things up? Would he have brought back women to the fold that were turned off from what Bill Clinton and the Lewinsky scandal was? Would that have? Because remember now, who ran his campaign?
Donna Brazile.
Yeah. Right. And for all intents and purposes, ran a great campaign. They definitely leaned in more and was very aggressive in terms of turning out the base at the time, which were, of course, always our black voters. But they really didn't go after the moderates. And I wonder, had there been a woman vice president on the ticket with him, a woman running mate, would that have changed the landscape a little bit more for him?
I don't know if it would have. I mean, just generally, it's just hard. After 2 terms, it's hard to get a third one.
Right.
Reagan and Bush did it though, but we have not figured that out in modern democratic times, and we have been set up very well to do it a few times here in recent history, but we always fumble the handoff and fumble the bag.
So that handoff between Clinton over to Gore, we know there were many reasons, controversial reasons. You also saw morally, what came into play in terms of one's morals in terms of presidency, and what does that mean on the voting base and conservative voters or very moderate voters, and what did that happen socially for them? Now we fast forward, to the Obama-Clinton handoff, and there was no controversy with President Obama.
There wasn't, but it was
khaki suit.
Khaki suit, but basically no drama. Obama, scandal-free administration. He came in, cleaned up a mess, was riding very high approval rating, headed out the door. But then the conversation at the time was, are we going to go with Biden or are we going to go with Hillary? Obama and a lot of other people intervened. And
Obama really didn't intervene because Biden was him and hawing about if he should run or not, and was like, can y'all just wait? And there was no time to wait.
There wasn't, but there's also some reporting that says Obama told Biden he needed to step aside, that we had a better chance with Hillary. But in any event, look, the point is, regardless of whether it was Obama or not, the party itself, there were definitely forces in the party that said this needs to be Hillary. And what's not lost on me there is the fact that the only Democrat to have ever beaten Donald Trump was Joe Biden. So maybe
popular vote.
Yeah, whatever. He got in the White House. So my point is, maybe instead of putting a thumb for Hillary, I don't know. Maybe we should have just let him run and just see, because I don't know if she still would have won that primary had she had to run against Biden. I think she would have, but I don't know. But we kind of put our thumb on the scale there, and then we ended up losing that election. But then 4 years later, again, the only person to beat Trump was Biden.
Well, there's a difference there. We experienced what a Trump presidency was. We experienced Trump during COVID, right? So it was like we had no choice. I mean, the nutless monkey probably could have ran against him and won. You know,
In 16?
yeah,
Or in 2020?
in 2020, because at that point people were fed up, right?
I mean, maybe, but you look, hey, but the fact is still there. And then the other way, like with that election, where I think we fumbled the bag too, is that like the Russian interference was
Where Obama should have
was
stepped in.
very clear, and we were still president, right? Obama was still president, and we should have leaned in more. We should have used that bully pulpit more to explain and articulate what was actually happening. And you know, Obama could have been very, very helpful in doing that, and he didn't do it. And then the last thing that I would say about how we fumbled the bag too, in 16, we, despite having the White House for 8 years and this very popular president, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, was in shambles.
Bingo.
Was in shambles,
Bingo.
and there was no reason for that.
Listen,
we were not ready to run an election.
We're gonna table that for another episode, right? Because Hillary also came in and helped save.
She saved it. She had to prop it up.
You know what I'm saying? And so we're gonna table that one for another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move up to another fumble the bag handoff, Biden to Harris,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
once again,
Yeah.
our dear brother Barack Hussein Obama is a key factor in this as well,
He was.
right?
Love him, but he was.
As well as Biden,
He was, yeah.
Henry ass. You know, he and we should have held his feet to the fire of him being a one-term president. And the issue and the problem is there was, even in Kamala's vice presidency, they should have given her more leadership responsibility and roles.
I think that that's right, and I think that, Biden campaigned saying he wanted to be a transitional figure, right? This bridge to the future, and I think had we stuck to that, we would have been in a much better position going into 2024. I think we know enough now to know that when he did get out of the race, that was ultimately like too late, not enough time for really anybody to really be successful under those circumstances. But I think she did a better job. I believe she did a better job than anybody else that we would have tried to put forward at that time, given the circumstances.
Well, so here's where I think you and I may differ, right? My argument was always there should have been some kind of process in terms of that handoff, right? The issue, and this is where President Obama came into play now that the story comes out, was he wasn't fully on board with Kamala getting in that role the way it happened.
His position, I think, is the same as yours, which is that he wanted a process, and if at the end of that process she's the person, then great, right? He benefited from that. He was a better nominee and was better and more prepared to win that election because he had to go through a hell of a process against Hillary Clinton. But again, it still goes back to fumbling the bag, because why were we not allowed? It's not that advocating for a process was wrong. It's just a moot point. By the time Biden dropped out of the race, we only had 100 days.
I agree.
So it still was a fumbling of the bag, because had he just done what he said he was going to do from the very beginning, the midterms are over, go ahead and say I ain't running again, and and that would have given the party a time to run a process. And exactly what you're saying and exactly what Obama was advocating for could have happened, and I do think we would have been in a stronger position to possibly win the election. I still think Kamala would have been the nominee, but she probably would have been a much stronger one. But that was fumbling the bag the way Biden did that. And then also, even under those circumstances, okay, he was older. We always knew it could be sudden where he might not be able to continue serving. You further fumbled the bag because you never cultivated her in the ways that you should have cultivated her so that she could take the reins.
Right.
They never did it. And a lot of Biden people don't like to hear this, but it is a part of the legacy that will need to be analyzed. you know, one of the suspicions is that, okay, you put this woman of color on the ticket because you needed a black woman to win, but you never really intended on letting her do anything or having her at the table.
Right.
Here it is, you win the election, and now we have to govern. And I'm sorry, like the way in which that was situated, right, while she was vice president, like it's for them to defend, but like it does leave the impression that maybe this was just about having a black woman on the ticket.
Absolutely.
And you never really intended for her to be a part of the actual governing of the country.
Listen, I've always stated that the Democratic Party has a fear of the black woman backlash, right? Because they, have created this notion, and it's not a notion. They've leaned in on black women as being the backbone of the party, but
until they want to lead it.
Until they want to lead
it. You can't have that.
Because if you look at it, her campaign was nothing but still Biden's campaign, just wrapped up in pink and green wrap. With some nice pretty bows on top.
That's right.
Right, and it was still a crappy ass campaign. It was designed for a aging 78-year-old man,
right,
and was only centered around you sending out surrogates or endorsements to prop up and produce people because the candidate couldn't do it himself.
Correct.
Correct. And so, once again, we're fumbling the bag, and the question is going to be, in 2028, what does that bag look like? Is it going to be Louis? Is it going to be Gucci? Is it going to be Coogee? Or is it going to be, a Herschel?
Oh my goodness.
And what do we do?
I don't know. It ain't about Louis and Gucci. We gotta reach Quick Trip and Racetrack. We gotta
Buc-ee's.
Dollar Tree.
Buc-ee's.
Okay, yeah, Buc-ee's. The Buc-ee's crowd. Like we gotta get some of the folks who had those bags,
right,
to be successful in 28. But I do think that all the examples we just went through, I do think kind of give some warning signs that we should be cognizant of for 2028. I think one of them is people need to stop trying to manipulate the process and put your thumb on the scale for one candidate or another, and just let the process play out.
Right.
And it's so interesting for me too, because when we were doing the Obama campaign, we were running against that and won and beat it. Right. And so it's like, when did we become those people where we're now trying to put our thumbs on the scale and manipulate the process? So I think that's one of them. And I think the other one too is that, and this is a controversial one, but like, we got to stop trying to hold these candidates to some purity contest. Like, they don't do that at all on the other side.
Right.
As Democrats, we eat our own young trying to hold people to these purity tests. That, like, if you want somebody that agrees with you 100% of the time, then you need to run yourself. But stop expecting that of these candidates, right? And we put them in positions where they have to twist and contort themselves instead of just being able to go out there and be authentic people, because they fear backlash of what we're gonna do to them as a party and as a base. So like we gotta stop that.
And then there's just another aspect, I guess more so on back to the states level, because we are entering the midterms. And the same thing we're saying now for the presidential in 2028 is the same thing we're saying for the midterm election, 2026 election, right? Because we have governors, statewide elections, but we also have Senate races that are going to be key, right? In Georgia, we have a U.S. Senate race. North Carolina is a U.S. Senate race. Louisiana, Kentucky.
Got Jersey races.
Well, Jersey and Virginia, of course, are happening right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, 2025. Yep.
Arizona, but they're going to be key races, particularly in areas where there are heavy communities of color, black and brown voters. And right, when we roll these candidates out, that we ensure that we don't try to whitewash a candidate to where the consultants, particularly the media consultants, are trying to portray them in a way that is inauthentic to who they are, right? That is how you get to a situation where you get into a primary. Are they black enough? Are they brown enough?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's a part of it as well, because it doesn't serve us well in terms of winning, right? We don't get the best product in terms of candidates, right?
It's milk
The
down.
electorate sees that and senses that, and then they don't want to turn out and mobilize around it, right?
Well,
So I agree with all of that. The whole ecosystem, we gotta let's get out there, let's have a robust process, let's run, and let's see what folks have to offer. But I think it's exciting for 2028 because I do think we have a very deep bench. I think we'll start seeing progress in the midterms toward being able to shift some things back.
A key indicator for folks, for folks watching and are looking now towards 2028 and how we build. So a key indicator of people who are positioning themselves for that. Watch who's being more vocal now and when and where they're being vocal and what they're being vocal on. Some people are going to opt to do a back and forth with the president to get more earned media.
Sure.
Those who are in Congress are going to opt to do it in committees, where they're being more vocal in committees about what's important. And watch it. It's going to be in areas of education, poverty, healthcare. You know, they're not going to touch immigration as much, right? They're going to touch the things that hurt the pockets. So education, healthcare, poverty, the economy. But then also watch who starts playing around in the South. Who's going to Georgia? Who's coming to Georgia to do events? Who's coming to areas around South Carolina, right? Who's coming to these places for fundraisers? Keep a lookout to see who's trying to raise money in those in these southern states.
Well, you talking about the people coming to the southern states. Well, who from the southern states is going to be in the mix?
I have a dream that one day
you already know
a pastor from Ebenezer.
We talk about. I mean, we talk about this, but you already know. I think he would be. Senator Warnock would be formidable. I think he could really put together a really good campaign, and I think that he could be a real problematic for anybody to beat. And then the other star in the South right now would be Wes. Even though Wes Moore just said he ain't running, but whatever. People say that all the time.
That's 3 years from now. He has a re-election campaign that he has to get through.
But I think Warnock would be a challenge when you look at all the other people in the rest of the field. The rest of the field, none of those people have ever proven that they can win in the South. And the reason the South is important in a primary, y'all, is because that's where the sizable chunk of black voters are, and it's hard to get the nomination if you can't do that. So you have some governors like a Whitmer. She has obviously some appeal with African Americans because she won statewide in Michigan, but
got a nice nickname.
But those Southern voters, you got a Southern preacher like a Warnock, and I just think that he has the capability and the potential, and is battle tested in a way where he could really cobble it together.
Yes.
So I hope he runs.
You know, my Morehouse brother, Reverend Raphael Warnock.
That's right.
My Morehouse brother.
That's right. You gonna have people thinking y'all was there at the same time.
Well, black don't crack. So
I don't even know how old. Is he even 60 yet?
No, he's not even. Yeah, he's early 50s.
Yeah, I was about to say he's barely 50.
Yeah.
See, that's another asset. And
age.
Okay.
Age.
It's gonna be a thing.
Listen, and it should stay a thing because people don't like you. Okay, you said it. Barack Obama went in looking like.
Barack Obama went in looking like a young Denzel Washington,
and came
out looking like Nelson Mandela.
Right. So a presidency ages you.
It does.
And I honestly think that there, in my mind, should be a cutoff. If you are 72 by the time of your second term, right? Like that's where it should fall in line, right? Because we shouldn't be electing anybody in their 70s. Not saying they can't do the job, but they shouldn't have to. Go and enjoy the rest of your life. Go enjoy time with your family. Hopefully your kids, your grandkids, if you have them, great grandkids, right? Go be more of a mentor, a guide, an aid. We need you to be younger. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but here, okay, but then this gets into another thing. I think age is going to be a part of it, but what do you do? Because we would see this conversation around Nancy Pelosi all the time. Sure, she was older, and people were like, "We need generational change and everything else," but she was still kicking ass. So so my whole thing is it can't just be age. If they're not prepared, and their age is like a part of it,
I don't think it's a preparation.
Take it from them.
I don't think it's a preparation. I think that they continue to put the barriers in place to keep you submissive and subversive, right? Like,
but that's what politics is. Part of politics is power, and if you don't know how to wield the power, young buck,
that's true.
Then maybe you ain't ready to be at the big boy table and have a seat.
Well, there are.
That's why
there are political tactics, and there are hood tactics. I want to see somebody invoke some hood tactics.
Okay, first,
you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so I think Nancy Pelosi embodies both.
Well, listen,
I mean, that like you don't think Nancy got a little bit of gangster in her?
She does.
Exactly,
she does.
A lot of gangster. You don't get to do what she's done. So
are you giving her your mama moment?
I hadn't thought about who I was gonna give my mama moment to. We didn't really talk about stars this time in the sense we talked about fumbling the bag, so there are no stars that we really talked about
here. We first did the mama moment. It wasn't predicated around someone we talked about in this episode. Because today, mine's going to go to somebody ain't got itch to do with politics, right? Like I was watching my boy Shay Shay, Club Shay Shay.
Yeah.
I fellow Georgia boy, Shannon Sharp.
Yeah.
And he's had some people on his show, but he had Damon Wayans on his show. And, I've caught glimpses of the episode, and recently the Wayans have been all across social media lately. And they just received an NAACP
Image Award,
right? Yeah. And Damon and Marlon and the rest of the siblings talked about their brother who spearheaded it, and that's Keenan. And you don't see Keenan as much, but my mama moment is going to Keenan, right?
Nice.
About what he did for his family, how he, embarked and had a vision, and had a journey. People don't know this. Keenan was going to Tuskegee to get an engineering degree.
I didn't even know that.
And was 6 months away from getting an engineering degree from Tuskegee.
And stopped?
And wanted to pursue being a stand-up comic.
So he didn't finish the degree?
I don't know if he finished.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, if you're 6 months away, and the way they say his parents led with an iron fist, he probably did finish.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I think he did finish. I don't think he pursued anything. He went and took his chances and did a couple of stand-ups in New York, and him and Robert Townsend packed up a U-Haul and moved to L.A. in the 80s.
Wow.
Right? And then, they hustled and grind and brought Hollywood Shuffle, and from there was the domino effect that then brought out Damon, that then brought out Marlon, right? Marlon and Sean. So he went from Hollywood Shuffle, did Hollywood Shuffle, tried to do another movie with Robert, and he wanted to direct. Robert told him, no, you're not ready. Stop fucking women and having fun out in L.A. So he grinded, wrote I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
You dirty mother.
Got the money for it. Put all his brothers and sisters in the movie.
Yeah.
If you look back, they all was in the movie. And then did Low Down Dirty Shame as a follow-up.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, how about we give you something to do in living color? And crazy enough, and this is what Damon said, Fox told him, you can do what you want to do. And he said he put that in the lyrics. You can do what you want to do. Right?
And
live in color.
Yeah.
Did a live in color.
Yeah.
And then had Sean and Marlon write scary movies. And he said they made $1 billion off of the scary movie franchises.
Which other one did they do?
Scary movie 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, there was several. That's right. I forgot. Yeah.
So, Keenan put his whole family on the map, but the Wayans they are relentless, right? They're unsung,
Yeah.
but they stay true to their values. They stay true to the loyalties, family,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, they have a plan, a vision. So it's going to the Wayans brothers and
I
Keenan for me.
I like that. I think that's really dope. And we actually saw Marlon do stand up,
Oh,
and it was funny.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was he was funny. Um, I don't know who I want to give it to. I'm going to give it to
You give it to your mama.
this guy. Well, just every day, but I'll give it to a client of mine because we do races of all sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And here recently, we took on a very little small campaign in Concord, Massachusetts, for school board, and we worked with this candidate named Dr. Michael Williams. And the reason I wanted to take it on is because we've seen how school boards have become more and more politicized here recently. So it actually is becoming more of an important race.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, the reason he was in the race was because uh, the school board voted to change the name of a middle school uh, to a black abolitionist who had roots in the area. The city council then freaked out and said, "No, we don't want to do that," and then did their own vote, even though the school board is completely independent.
Right.
And so there was this backlash, and Michael Williams just basically stepped up, like, "What? This is ridiculous. Why can't it be named for a black abolitionist?" And so he, came out of retirement, ran. He was a neurosurgeon. He just ran for office for the first time, just a guy standing up and running. And because he didn't like that decision and how it was being handled, and so he became the first African American not only elected to the school board in Concord, but the first African American elected to anything in Concord. And Concord is a suburb of Boston. It's only like 2.3% black. And we went in and we helped him, and we ran a slate actually, and we flipped that school board and put more, shall we say, progressive thinkers there. And so I'm going to give it to him because Lord knows, he made good money, nice neurosurgeon, could have just, stayed on the sidelines, but he saw something that was wrong, and he just strived to make it right. And we talk about all the time these little pockets of resistance. If we just kind of do them within our own personal spheres of influence, it does bubble up. So I give mine to Dr. Michael Williams.
Dr. Mike, Dr. Williams, Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Congratulations. Mamba Award goes to you.
That's right.
So, this is Big Rich.
Kevin Harris.
And we're signing off. I believe this is episode 12. If you didn't know,
yeah,
now you know. Peace.
Peace.